In a symposium on Tuesday, April 26, 2011, former top U.S. government officials called for urgent U.S. government and United Nations action to protect 3,400 residents in Camp Ashraf. Among the speakers at the symposium were Andrew Card, White House Chief of Staff 2001 to 2006, Howard Dean, former DNC Chairman, Mayor Rudy Giuliani, Tom Ridge, Homeland Security Secretary 2003 to 2005, Philip Zelikow, Senior Counselor to the State Department 2005 to 2007, Michael Sheehan, State Department Coordinator for Counterterrorism 1998 to 2000, and Colonel Gary Morsh, Medical Doctor, U.S. Army Reserves and President of Heart to Heart International. Ambassador Rees, chairing the symposium, noted that the bipartisan panel agreed that the Iraqi regime has betrayed its promises to the U.S. military and can't be trusted. We agree that the U.S. government is betraying its solemn promise to the residents of Camp Ashraf, betraying our own national security interests to promote regime change in Iran, and our own values of democracy, freedom, and human rights.
There's an article today in the New York Post that repeats an article, I believe, in the New Republic, in which a liberal Democrat and a conservative Republican agree. Here's what they agree on. What they agree on is that President Obama does have a policy in the Middle East. I've been wondering what that was. But now I think I know what the policy is. It's called lead from behind. The liberal Democrat thinks this is wonderful, and the conservative Republican thinks it's awful, but they both agree that the basic hallmark of his policy throughout has been lead from behind. That's what happened in Egypt, right? First he thought Mubarak was stable. The vice president said Mubarak was stable. The Secretary of State said he couldn't be dislodged, and then Mubarak gone. Then, of course, we had, following on that, the situation in Libya. First, it was unlikely Gaddafi would be removed. Then we called for regime change in Libya. On the day that the president called for regime change in Libya, do you think it might have occurred to him to call for regime change in Iran? Well, if you're going to lead from behind, it would seem to me that delisting the MEK would now be very comfortable for this administration, because they don't have to worry about the nervousness of leading. Everybody else has delisted the MEK. The United Kingdom has, in a very thoughtful written opinion. The European Union has. The president doesn't have to follow, he can lead. And here's the danger of lead from behind. While you're waiting, while you're dithering, while you're considering, while you're analyzing, while you're pondering, while you're dreaming, people die because of inaction. This isn't a game in which you can take a time out. I spoke to many of you in this group in September of last year. In September, I said, we need a Ronald Reagan, someone who has the courage to support the opposition in Poland and not look the other way when your people were in the streets seeking freedom. Where was America? Dithering, hiding, afraid, wanting to negotiate with a madman. Well, my goodness, we don't have to follow anymore. We don't have to lead anymore. This should make this administration very comfortable. They can follow. But in doing that, so many have died. In September, we called for delisting the MEK. Now, here's the price of delay. Here's why leading from behind isn't leading at all. Here's why leading from behind is so dangerous. Those 35 people that were killed might very well not have been killed if in September or October or November or December the Secretary of State and the President had done what is obviously necessary to do, which is to delist the MEK. That, right over there is the price of delay. Right over there is the reason why leadership at times calls for bold action. Leadership might have avoided the Second World War. Governor Dean made the case overpowering that the MEK should be delisted. Whatever the reasons for listing it back in the 90s, whether it was just an attempt to mollify what was thought of as moderates in Iran, if the strategy was to negotiate, one of the reasons to reject this strategy now, it hasn't worked. Things have gotten worse in Iran, not better. Iran's gotten much closer to becoming a nuclear power than it was then. Iran has become more assertive. Ahmadinejad is worse than what's come before. We have got to get the President and the Secretary of State to obviously do what is necessary. And this is such a great opportunity for them and for us. Someone like Gaddafi, horrible person, horrible history, certainly a good thing if he goes for his own people, but right now in terms of us, America, and our whole effort against terrorism, not much of a player. Now, how about we get some of the real bad ones out? If we're getting some of the in-between ones out, how about taking advantage of this movement? But where's the president on this? Where's the president talking about the opposition in Iran, about helping them, about assisting them, giving them moral support? You don't want troops. So I'm glad to be with you today, and I'm glad to stand up. If we can intervene elsewhere, well, we certainly can give support to the Iranian opposition. We can certainly delist the MEK and then go further than that. We shouldn't just delist the MEK, we should applaud them. We should thank them. We should thank them for the help they have given us in getting realistic about nuclear power in Iran when we had a misleading intelligence estimate telling us that they had stopped their development of nuclear reactors. I didn't believe it at the time. I never believed it, and it turns out to be totally untrue. If it wasn't for the work of the opposition in Iran, we would not know that. So we shouldn't just delist the MEK. We should join with them. We're on the same side. We're on the side of freedom. We're on the side of democracy. We're on the side of the rule of law. We're on the side of no nuclear weapons in Iran. We're on the side of an Iran that'll be a good neighbor.
Thank you. It's not often that I speak after joining the audience in being a witness to mass murder. In addition to the thousands of American troops who have given their lives in Iraq, now thousands of innocent civilians are giving their lives. Because the truth is, the Prime Minister of Iraq is a mass murderer. The Prime Minister of Iraq, Nouri al-Maliki, ordered this. On the video, we saw snipers aiming at unarmed civilians. We saw tanks crushing individuals. This is not what America sought to do when President Bush sent troops to Iraq. But this is what has happened. We have an Iraqi government that is now becoming a satellite government for Iran, which truly is a nation that can be classified as part of the evil empire. The United States government has an obligation and an ability to do something about this. Unlike Libya, each person who was shot dead has a signed agreement by an officer of the United States of America promising to protect them. Unlike Libya, when the residents of Ashraf voluntarily disarmed to the last armament, the residents of Ashraf have a signed card saying that they are protected persons under the Geneva Convention. If we can spend millions of dollars a day in Libya fomenting a civil war, we can spend our hard-earned treasure keeping our word to the people of Ashraf who are innocent civilians. This is what you call in Washington dithering. But as we dither, innocent people die. This country, our country, is an extraordinary country. We have served as a beacon of democracy for 235 years. Where is our government now to protect the human rights of the people who we promised to protect? Where are they? As Congressman Sherman said, there is blood on the hands of the United States, and we can still do something about it before it is too late, but we cannot dither anymore. In the United Kingdom, there was not one, not two, but 3 lawsuits, and the British courts finally ordered their Home Secretary, the Foreign Secretary, to take the people in Ashraf off the terrorist list. In the European Union, every court found that putting the MEK on the terrorist list was wrong, and finally the Europeans took them off the terrorist list. In the United States of America, in this city, the courts have found that they did not get due process, and they have ordered the State Department to review this. 232 days later, where is the State Department while people die? MEK must be removed from the terrorist list by the State Department, and that needs to happen now. Otherwise, the State Department and the administration will become complicit directly in the death of 3,365 additional unarmed civilians. That is not what this country is about. And I don't mind gross bureaucratic oversights and fumbling. I do mind if they cost people lives, especially innocent people that are non-combatants, who the United States promised to protect. Take them off the terrorist list right now, not one more day. And when we must bring the United States government to acknowledge the written promise that they have made to uphold the Geneva Conventions and make sure unarmed civilians who are our charges are not murdered by our supposed ally who turned out to be a mass murderer himself.